Hi everyone, I am Kyle Reutner of Kōhana Rum. I'm excited to share the perfect cocktail with you today to showcase amazing rum. In this case, my Hawaiian agricole rum. We'll get to it. So here we are with 3 very simple ingredients in front of us just to make a beautiful daiquiri. What we have is phenomenal rum grown right here on the island of Oahu out in Kunia. Little bit of sugar water. This is simple syrup. It's 1-to-1 by weight for those of you keeping track at home, which means there's an equivalent amount of sugar and water. Simple. Lime juice, not very much of it left because I drink a lot of daiquiris. This lime juice happens to be from Ma'o Farms out Waianae side. Phenomenal farmers, phenomenal fruit. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these 3 ingredients with nowhere to hide, nowhere to go, and try to elevate all 3 of them by letting them work together. So we're going to take our mixing tin. We're going to be Parisian today. I'm going to measure out exactly 3/4 of an ounce of 1-to-1 simple syrup. Then I'm going to take a little bit of that freshly juiced Ma'o lime juice, an equivalent amount, so we're going to do 3/4 of an ounce there as well. So now we've got our sour base, sweet and sour, balancing out. The traditional specs for a daiquiri would get a 2-part pour on the rum, so 1.5 ounces. We're going to actually bump that up and let the rum steal the show. We're going to go all the way up to 2 ounces. If you're pouring this at home, the smell of that rum probably just filled the room. That aroma is not something we ever try to hide. Real cane, grown in a real place by real people. We're pretty proud of it. Turn that over. There's some ice in the bottom of my Parisian tin. Nice and firm. Take a up-style glass or a Dixie cup, or pour it into your friend's mouth. I don't care how you consume a daiquiri, just do it quickly and while it laughs. We're gonna double strain this for one simple reason. I don't need any of those ice shards messing up the texture on my daiquiri and getting in the way of my enjoyment. But there we have it. Classic daiquiri, no garnish because it's gonna be drank too quickly. Cheers.
Okay, Kyle, here we go. Your drink again. What's in it?
Fresh lime juice, local limes if you can. Let's be real, let's support local. Local farmers mean local deliciousness. Kōhana Kea, our Hawaiian agricole rum, and sugar water, simple syrup. Super easy.
Okay, here we go. I'm going to be the guinea pig.
Aha.
I have to make sure I turn the glass the right way. That's so pure. You can just, the rum. You know, the lime juice doesn't take away from the quality of the rum.
It's supposed to elevate it.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the concept of squeezing a lemon over a fish. You don't have a heavy sauce. The lemon just cuts the oiliness and cleanses the palate between bites for the fish. That's what this does. The lime juice just kind of uplifts the rum. It's really good, Kyle.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining us, bro.
Of course.
Thanks
I'm
for
stoked.
sharing.
Absolutely.
Here we go.
Yeah.
So, welcome back. Again, joining us this week is Kyle Reutner and, of course, Ariana Suchia. Thanks for making that drink.
Delicious cocktail.
We have a color commentator over there off screen. What did you think about that daiquiri?
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
It was. What do you think?
Beautiful.
Your comments.
I think, like she said earlier, it's dangerous because you
Abunai.
Abunai is what I specifically said, because you're tasting it and it's so smooth, but it still has a lot of flavor and it's almost refreshing, perfect for summer.
Yeah.
I've made 1 or 2.
Been around the block on those daiquiris.
That's the spirit.
It is.
Yes, we like that.
Oh, just you wait. A snackery will turn it all around.
Yeah, there you go. There we go. Okay, so you also brought a wine for us to enjoy. Yeah. So this one is called the Ulapalakua Vineyards, Maui County 2020 Rosé. 146 cases produced. Ariana, what do you smell in this wine? I mean, what does this wine say to you?
I think for me, I'm really excited, because Hawaii is finally getting recognized in terms of AVA, and especially to
What is an
Kyle's
AVA?
point, American Viticultural Area.
Okay.
So what we're thinking about here is like in France in the old world, where they're actually specifically noting provinces, specific regions that are known for something. Finally, now Hawaii can be on the radar, and I think it's going to be the start of a very long but beautiful journey that we have to actually think about agriculture. And I hope it doesn't stop at wine, to be honest. We've had this conversation about coffee, different produce and things like that. And I think it's...
The perfect example is the kula onion.
Yeah, exactly.
There's something very unique about kula Maui that results in a special onion. Neighboring Makawao and the rest of Maui, for that matter, onion's not as special. I don't know why, but I'm sure it has something to do with the soil, the sun, the aspect, the wind, the rain, the drainage, all that stuff.
Terroir.
Exactly. It comes into something unique. So that's what this AVA approval, the approved viticulture area, American viticulture area, that's why it's so important, because the government, the BATF, has identified these different places, whether it's Napa Valley or Maui or wherever,
and
as
France
being...
has it for cheese, so why can't we also expand our understanding of what makes different produce the way it is? And I think that's super important. It goes back to Kōhana rum philosophy as well, right?
It all
and getting
ties
back
in.
to the culture and
the
history.
Kona coffee thing. I mean, it's not only Kona, although Kona specifically, where Dwayne Herons grows his coffee, I can't remember the name of the area, but I mean, all these sub-appellations of Kona and Molokai and, Wailua. Yep. I mean, we can do the same thing with rums, with sakes. I think tea is going to be a big thing, can be a big thing. Yep. Tobacco, because in the old days, they used to grow tobacco here in the islands. If someone resurrects that, back in the 1800s, tobacco was grown. So imagine there's a small little company on Kauai making their own cigars, but can you imagine if someone really took hold of that stuff?
Don't let Michael watch this episode because he's going to start rolling his own cigars in my backyard.
Well, it's better than rolling I don't know. But the whole thing about it, you'd be thankful that he's just rolling cigars. Okay, so anyway, it goes back to sense of place.
Yes, absolutely.
And so Kyle was kind enough to bring this. So this is all grown on their ranch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm no sommelier. I know what I enjoy, and I know, I think, who I ought to support. And as a producer here on our islands, why wouldn't I make sure I'm always supporting Ulapalakua and Maui wine? So I'm part of their estate club. I adore it, and I share it as often as I can because it's unexpected.
Yeah.
It's one thing for me to bring a gamay, a beautiful Beaujolais here or something like that, but to bring something that, maybe you haven't had a chance to touch, even though it's on our islands, I thought it would be cool.
Yeah, this is my first time, and like we said with the daiquiri, when you're thinking about summer Hawaii climate, especially, this is very refreshing.
It's very pretty. It's a very pretty pink wine, and it's very, lightly fragrant. It's not gobs of strawberry, cherry. It's more nuanced, which I love. And the fact that it's much more delicate. It's lighter on its feet because Maui is pretty hot in comparison to a lot of the other wine growing regions of the world. So, to make something this light, this perfumed, this delicately nuanced, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And we use the word savory a lot here, and I wouldn't say that it's that standard type of savory that we're expecting, but there is a different type of savoriness, which I'm interested in exploring going further, a hint of like almost a salinity that makes it easy to come back to as well, which is really, really fun.
So just to give you some history on this Ulapalakua ranch, I mean, they started this vineyard 40-something years ago. I think it's up to 44 years now.
Wow.
Now, understand this undertaking. It's like, first of all, I don't know vines, because I've always wanted to have a vineyard here in Hawaii and make wines here in Hawaii. Hawaii's not set up to grow really good wines. So you have to do super high elevations, because the two main challenges that you have is, first of all, you have no dormancy. Just like you two need sleep, in order to function, especially for the long term, so do vines. So they have no dormancy. And the second thing that's the big challenge is that because we're a tropical climate, they have diseases and pests that no one would even know how to combat or whatever. So those are the two main challenges that you have with trying to grow world-class grapes here in Hawaii. So imagine doing that for up to 44 years with those challenges continuously.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the birds. The birds just whack their vines and their grapes like crazy. And so you have all these challenges that keep coming at you. And then to try to be price competitive, all these different challenges. And this lady, Paula Hegele, she's up for it for 40 something years. And I was showing you guys the video of her that I keep on my phone because every time I look at it like at least once a month, twice a month, because it re-inspires me that here's this lady going up against incredible odds and churns out this wine. So is it a gold medal winner? Is it, the next Domaine Tempier? Well, that's not the intent. Plus that this is Hawaii. So Hawaii grown wines cannot be compared to anywhere else in the world. That's part of being unique. And so the bottom line on this wine is that it's uniquely Hawaii. It's very pretty. It's light on its feet. It's absolutely delicious and done in a very restrained style. So I think the opportunity window with foods goes like this.
I think
what's not to like about it?
To both of your point, I mean, we all love Napa. We all love Beaujolais. We all love, French award-winning wines. But being here in Hawaii, you're not going to drink Napa every single day of the week, nor every meal. So why not experiment with something a little bit different, a little bit out of the box, with not just a sense of place, but a sense of purpose, which I think is a really fun, exciting experiment for all of us.
Yeah, we don't talk about it a lot as a community, but intent.
Yes.
What's the intention? Like you can think about that as a restaurant, as a vintner, as a distiller, as a producer of a podcast. What's your intent? And I don't think we talk about it a lot, the why.
Yeah.
And so it really gets to the core of everything is like, they're obviously trying to make an amazing wine. But why? They're trying to figure out a lot of different steps. They're building something. They're making a community. They're doing all of that. So their intention, I think, is fantastic. And hopefully with the AVA
and inspiring.
everything, inspiring for sure.
So you're a part of their wine club, you said, the estate club?
Yeah, I just buy wine from
Okay,
them. I
cool.
just sign up for the
I just
twice
wanted
a
to
year.
take a side trip here. When I go camping, it's intense. I just want to share that with you. Okay, so this whole culture, this whole understanding of all the values that this wine represents, we can apply that to Kōhana rum.
Yeah, I mean there's so many areas that we would cross over with them. Obviously, they have a longer legacy, but for us, what we really rest upon all the time is the plants. And these heirloom Ko have been growing here for 1,000 years. So we're really fortunate. Yes, disease, all those things, but there was an intention with the Hawaiians bringing Ko here, bringing sugarcane here. So for us, it's just stewarding that forward, which is great.
I love that.
Yeah.
And
Great.
also, having visited you in your realm a couple times, one time we visited, you mentioned that you actually had a Native Hawaiian chronological historian also working with you and those specific strains of sugarcane as well, correct?
And I'm leaving you guys the book today. I brought it with me.
Ooh.
So we were fortunate
Not
enough.
for you, it's for me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll read over your shoulder. It's fine.
Dr. Noah Lincoln, a man who, without, we would not be able to do the project in the way that we have. And honestly, he crushed it for us. I mean, walking the fields with Noah is like walking them with no one else. He literally wrote the book on Ko. It's amazing. Yeah.
So, just to put this in perspective, he's made me think about so many things of where we came from, or what's out there. So, your buddy Dave Newman from Pine and
My
Jigger.
boy.
Yes. After, I think it was on our podcast, after the podcast, he pulled me aside. He says, Chuck, if there was one book.
Oh, by the smoke.
Yeah.
And
So he said, if there's one book that you would want me to read about wine, what book would it be? So I told
They
him the book.
swapped, yeah.
What
And
is
so
it? Can you tell everybody?
Yeah, it's called Adventures on the Wine Route
Okay.
by Kermit Lynch.
All right.
I don't know if it's still in print,
They have
but
on
I read that
Amazon.
book. I read that
They
book once a year to re-inspire myself. It's
love
with
it.
all the values that you will totally dig.
I'm buying this book as
I think
soon
it's
as we
actually on
stop
Barnes
filming.
and Nobles as well. They have both.
Okay, so so you can go either. I won't make that joke. Okay, so it's called Adventures on the Wine Route. So I in turn asked Dave if there's one book that you would want me to read when it comes to your realm of the beverage world, what would it be? And it was, what's it called? By
the Smoke and the Smell by Thad Volger.
Yeah, so he was a top mixologist from San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So the reason why I bring up this book, it's kind of like the Kermit Lynch book, but not really. Kermit Lynch is more, he's in there. You know, he's not trying to be cool. He's just saying it's just a man's diary. But one of the interesting facets that I learned from that book, so in Scotland, as an example, there's at least, the last count he was saying, there was 150 distilleries. 150. Only 6 are independent.
Wow.
So if you look at that concept, so there's like 4 major companies that own the majority of the distilleries. Maybe 4 or 5. Okay? And each company owns 4 or 5, 6 brands. All the big names that you see on the store shelves and all the bars and everything like that. And so when you do the research, they're all buying grain on the open market. There's no discussion of heirloom or da-da-da or da-da-da or it's grown here or whatever. It's all being,
it's commodity.
It's processed the same way. I mean, it's all being, just like how you do beer where you have to have wort and you have to have all these things. It's all done the same way by the same people. Same thing. It starts off the same. And even the distillation, they use the same still.
Wow.
And so the only differences comes with the aging and all that stuff, you know. But I mean, the initial process, even though they market these brands as being, this one's like, you know, the Grand Cru, and this one's like, it's all the same stuff.
And my educated guess would be not too dissimilar from maybe what's going on in the rum industry.
Exactly, and that's what I want to bring up to the point is that, you know, in this day and age of people creating stories, you have image makers that make an image of this vodka or this cognac or this champagne or this whatever, which makes the viewer want to buy it because they want to be part of that experience. They imagine themselves enjoying it, just like how that Prince or that movie star did or whatever. We've gotten away from the authenticity, the artisan, the real of the spirit, of the intention. He mentioned intention of the spirit or the market, the Maui Sparkler, or the intention is the key word. So I want to make it clear to all of you that that's why we are talking about Kōhana today, because the intention is homage to the plants.
Yeah.
And the variety subspecies of those plants.
And also the native Hawaiian culture, which, you know, we have Cully here producing this podcast, and that's so special to him, is like native Hawaiian storytelling and how that all ties in too. And you guys are actually working with Dr. Lincoln and actually documenting some of those stories as well, right?
Yeah, and when appropriate, we like to repeat them and talk about them. There's no ownership. I'm a Haole guy, you know what I mean? There's no trying to own these Hawaiian plants. It's trying to grow them so that they're always grown here. It's a really unique position to be in, to be able to share this stuff and also just to be able to listen. The amount of like aunties that will stop by and talk about one particular and how like that was always grown here. Like this is what we used to chew on, you know, before the plantation started whacking down this area, you know, we had this whole plot. All these cool stories. And that's just anecdotal stuff. That's not, like, think about the massive intelligence in the indigenous Hawaiian community. Bananas.
Yeah.
So cool.
You know what's really interesting about that is that he just said something. So my family were farmers in Kōhana Valley, right? They leased quite a bit of land in Kōhana Valley. And one of the things they used to grow was sugarcane. But not for sugar, just sugarcane. And the last of the siblings just passed away a month and a half. I would have loved to talk to him about what kind of sugarcane they grew back then and hear the stories. That would have been cool, man.
For sure.
So special.
Yeah.
I think it's so important for our listeners because I think we've all been around sugarcane, like growing up, chewing on it and things like that, but we never stop and look at the color of the stalk and the way the leaves are and where exactly they're growing. And I remember you shared with us, there's this one purple stalk, I think it's like Purple Heart, and it's specifically in regard to when a loved one goes away and you want them to come back. Can you share that one actually?
So there's a really interesting, I guess, quartet of different that get used in this Hana Aloha ceremony. And you have to be a little careful because Hana Aloha is small kind of like black magic.
Okay.
So like really you have to be careful because it could be used incorrectly. Like you could enchant someone else to fall in love with you, which
wow.
like that's not what people necessarily want. But there were 3 used. Pili Mai, which most people you understand the song, A Pili Mai, right? Pili Mai was like the infatuation cane, this like come hither, right? Popa'a, which is probably the most famous of them, is this dark purple cane with a purple leaf, and it's meant to sort of cement 2 people together, their love.
okay.
And then Manulele, which means bird in flight, could send out and bring that love back. Now, that's really breaking apart a very old and very sacred portion of so like telling it anecdotally without telling whole stories,
story.
it's really tough. So yes, amazing. There's some really cool stuff. My favorite part about Hana Aloha is actually in the act of Hanai. So in actually adopting someone. So before like contact in Hawaiian culture, you could actually bring someone into your family by performing the Hana Aloha ceremony, like literally bringing in that Hanai family. That stuff is like chicken skin. So I'm adopted, yeah. So like that one, like crazy.
And I love because that's something that everyone here, you know, especially if you're from Hawaii listening to this podcast, we throw Hanaya out there and we mean it endearingly and everything, but to have that context makes it so much deeper. Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, when Dr. Lincoln dropped that on me, we're like filming this big thing out at the distillery one time, and he's like, you guys never talk about like the Hanai portion. I'm like, I've never heard this. And so all you have to do is listen. Because everybody wants to share. I mean, it's great stories.
Yeah.
And part of the whole process with Kōhana has just been listening to people. Listen to distillers, listen to historians, just listen. Listen to
Farmers,
the people.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I love that.
That's a cool thing. Well, the wine can be the same thing, right?
Full on.
Okay, so aside from the stories and everything, let's talk about the technical side of Kōhana rum.
Yeah.
What separates it from other premium rums?
Yeah, the biggest things, obviously, in the field, but using fresh sugarcane juice to make rum is
How does that make it different?
well, you would never make tequila from agave syrup
Right.
or whiskey from
Corn syrup.
high fructose corn syrup. But somehow the rum world got started with the byproduct of sugar production. So,
Right.
so in the beginning, and we think in Barbados, you're making sugar. The other side of the sugar production model is molasses. Molasses.
Easier to store, easier to easier to
Bulk.
do.
Yeah.
You don't have to refine it. You don't have to do anything.
But it's quite literally waste.
Yeah.
So at some point they realize it's fermentable and we can do something with it. But because in the interim, you want to know why all the distilleries in the Caribbean are by the water? Because they're dumping molasses in the ocean, which we saw in the harbor 14, 15 years ago. That's no bueno.
Yeah.
I digress. Once they realized that they could actually start feeding their pigs with it, they were feeding their slaves. Look, there's a lot of dirty history in the rum world, right? Pull back. They're like, well, we can start fermenting and then distilling this. So why aren't we? So they used it. I mean, you've got all this maritime history, right? Where like all the sailors drink rum. It's so they didn't.
The pirates.
So you didn't create a mutiny. You keep them drunk at night. They did the same thing to the slaves. You would keep them drunk in the evening.
Oh, no
so you
wonder,
give them
Michael.
a pint.
Yeah. Every night.
No mutiny, but crazy stuff. And I love it. We're looking at you, kid. So the biggest difference from the production side is using fresh juice instead of molasses. Then we ferment. We allow our ferment to go to dry, which isn't uncommon, but it's in the distillery world, they usually talk about timeline for, ferments. And most people are like, oh, as soon as it goes to dry, which means essentially all the sugar has been eaten, right? All right, ferment to dry. There's still a biological load that can change in the next few days. So we don't rush the process. So let it go a little further, creating longer chains, a little bit more acidic. Our sugarcane wine tastes a little bit like turned guava juice meets apple cider.
Okay.
Great distillates usually come from highly acidic wines, beers, etc. It's just better flavor.
But you understand that when you ferment dry, it's also naked. So any mistakes that you made,
Yeah. Has to
any
be pure,
impurities, anything clearly
Yep.
shows. So when you ferment dry, you got to know what the hell you're doing, and you got to do it patiently.
Very
Especially with-
deliberate. Yeah.
That's why, German Rieslings, it took a long time for people to adjust to growing and producing. You can't have botcher-sized grapes
Yeah.
because it'll clearly show and it'll be a flaw. So it's the same thing when you make like rum or these naked spirits. If you ferment dry, you have to know what the hell you're doing.
Yep. Fruit brandies, things like that.
Yeah.
Because like you said, there's nowhere, and we talk about it all the time. So we play in the spirit world, but the people who almost always understand us at Lick One are wine people.
Yeah.
We show up at a wine store.
Yeah.
No, everybody's like, what? Single varietal spirit? Let's go.
Yeah.
So it's great because there's a
There's a
natural
common connection, yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
Wow. That's cool.
To talk a little bit more about what we do that makes us a little different or a lot different, we do batch distillation, which most people are going to think, I can't let the podcast go too long. Batch distillation just means there's a real start and a real finish, and people are making decisions based on flavor during that. If you want a longer explanation, come to the distillery. I'll talk to you for an hour. My degree's in chemistry. But with that, there's a very, very tight moment of when we're deciding what's good enough to be Kōhana rum along that. So there's 3 parts of a distillation run: heads, hearts, and tails. We are really
Aggressive.
particular. Like we leave a lot of fat and meat on those bones because we want to be sure all the time. So Tyler Johnson, our distiller,
What do you do with
focused.
the leftovers?
Well, we made a lot of sanitizer last year
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right.
for our Coco Leca, our cacao and honey liqueur. We'll redistill some of our tails. We won't ever redistill heads. It's all cleaning solution basically. So no, we just
I
keep
want to say that
middle
you guys
portion.
also did a really good thing in 2020. You made that hand sanitizer, and I believe a lot of restaurants benefited from you actually donating a lot of hand sanitizer to them as well.
Yeah, it was nice to have purpose in a time where a lot of people didn't. So we
Yeah.
were very fortunate to be able to do that.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's a great story.
That was great. Once we've distilled and made amazing rum, we will rest even our white spirits for a minimum of 90 days. Our aged spirits go in for any amount of time.
And what do you age it in?
Stainless usually for our white spirits. You could do neutral. Neutral barrels aren't purely neutral. So
Yeah,
for
I got
us,
it.
stainless is better for me.
How about concrete? You ever play with concrete?
We haven't yet. I say
Yet.
yet.
Dot.
Yeah, Como's tequila,
Mhm.
he ages his in amphora.
Richard?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's a really interesting concept,
Oh,
and
super
it
cool.
gives a roundness, a sweetness to the spirit that wasn't there before. So concrete, I think for these hand crafted artisan spirits, you'll see more and more of that. I think.
No, for sure you will. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, from there, it's just finding the right proof and bottling it. I mean,
Okay, so you have 4 different rums right now that you offer.
Yep.
Okay, the main one is called.
Kea. So
Kea.
like Mauna Kea.
Yeah.
Kea for white. Keas are sort of like workhorse. It's what you'll see at all of the bars. It's what
Right.
you'll see at Bar Leather Apron, at
Yeah.
Deck, at
Azure.
every restaurant, at
Yeah.
Azure, at all of our Azure. I mean, we're all Hawaiian, thank God. You guys are great to us. Then we make Koho.
She's not there anymore, by the way.
You're not there?
I'm at G Lion, so Levi,
had no idea.
Highs. Yeah, Kiora.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for your time and your support while you were there.
Don't worry, it will be in Highs eventually. I promise you that.
G Lion takes care of us at Levi and a couple other places, but
Yeah.
we don't have to go into all of it. Thanks, Dust. Sorry, I lost myself.
Kea.
Kea, Koho, which means to select or choose. So that's our barrel select, think like a quality bourbon or
Yeah.
cognac, but in the rum world, which is just better. Cast strength rum called Kila. And then we also make Coco Leca, which is our cacao and honey liqueur.
Wow.
We do a few times a year make something very, very special, which is Koa. We have a cooper here who learned to cooper and is making us Koa wood barrels. So we have about 8
That's
right
crazy.
now. Yeah. And so, yeah, ridiculous. And obviously, if you've seen the price of Koa things, you can imagine building barrels of it. He's crazy talented, Seth at Continental Craftsman. And the spirit is unlike anything I've ever tasted. It's not unheard of to age in acacia, which is what koa is.
Right.
But holy cow, there's this praline thing that happens. I've never had it in a spirit. And then it adds all that red hue from the koa. Absolutely bananas. Not in flavor, but in spirit.
That's a good one.
Got you.
Okay, so that we've gone over the Kōhana. What I'd like to do now is, you also love wine. What kind of wines do you love?
Oh, I love champagne. And I love sherry.
Ooh.
Oh, I didn't bring sherry.
Got those sort of bookends. So champagne, sherry, I like. I really enjoy some like oxidative style wine. So think like there's some fun like Vincent stuff. Like
And blends too.
I'm spoiled. Like I don't know anything about wine, but I get given and buy very nice wines because of people like you guys.
Yeah, I ain't giving you nothing, bro.
I just watch your
And I'm
show and
just
buy all
joking.
this stuff.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's take a break. I'd like to do a couple wines blind. I'm not asking you to guess anything, just whether you like it or not. And if you don't like it, we're not going to show the label because I don't want it to be a negative thing.
Heard.
But it's two things I bought at a couple of stores.
I love it.
And just to get people to try these kind of wines, that they might not normally try. And I talk about the store, not to endorse anybody, but, I'm hoping viewers will go and buy the wines there so that the stores will carry more and more wines like this, and we can help grow it.
I
The
love
concept.
this. I don't know if it's the appropriate time to wax poetic because I don't want too big. But I've been watching the show since inception, and I love that you've found a way to still teach and share from a different angle because you did that forever. Like anybody that's of my age, 20 years older, or probably 5 years younger, maybe even a little further than that, they all know you. They attended wine classes with you. They did all that. And now you found a way to share with an even broader audience. I think it's freaking amazing.
Well, thank you.
So,
Yay, this is exciting then. Let's go to blind tasting.
You know what's so funny? Someone else paid me a compliment a couple of podcasts ago. They said, "Uncle, your voice is so perfect for the kind of podcasts and radio and stuff like that." And Cully then said in side mouth, he said, he's got a face for radio too. Oh my God, it took me 3 weeks to heal over that. But anyway, I'll take your compliment, say thank you. So we're going to take a break. We'll be right back to Taste Some Wines Blind. Stay tuned, everybody. Aloha. Okay, welcome back. Again, joining us is Kyle Reutner from Kōhana Rum and the Gramsam Ariana Suchia. So we have two wines here. Again, we're going to blind taste it just so that you're not influenced by labels or anything, but I'm not asking you to guess anything. No grape variety, no soil, no vintage, no producer, nothing. Just whether you enjoy these wines or not. So Kyle, as I told you off camera, I went to a store, three stores actually, to buy specifically these two wines. One store didn't have either. And we tell what store it is because I'm hoping that viewers will go there and buy it and thereby continuing a growth of these kind of wines that are family owned and heirloom heritage vines, just like your rum, farm sustainably, all that stuff. These are very important concepts. And hopefully if you guys enjoy one, and if you don't enjoy one, it's totally cool. Please be candid. We just won't show the label because I don't like to make it negative, but let's just have open dialogue. Why, how, when would you enjoy a wine like this? How much would you imagine it costing? And what kind of foods would you imagine having it with? That way, the viewer, if they're interested, they can go to that store and buy the wine and try it themselves.
that's great.
And then because it's on YouTube, you can actually do that and then pause and then go buy the wines and come back and replay that segment so you can try the wines along it. So maybe you can give some structure to what you smell and taste of the wines, okay? Okay, here we go. Wine number one is this one, okay? So who should we start with? We'll start with Kyle first. What do you smell and taste? Do you smell more fruit or do you smell more mineral or do you smell more oak? What do you smell?
Well, on the eyes, drinking with the eyes first, there's some bubbles there, which was interesting.
Yep.
Oh, wow. Nope, not a ton of fruit. Got a little bit of it's got the thing that happens with a touch of oak. So I'd say close to vanilla going on.
Yep. It's old barrels, by the way, but you get that bread thing
Brioche, for sure.
brioche thing from Method Champenois. sparkling wine. I was told that Dave Newman told me you like sparkling wines, so that's why I chose this wine specifically. Ariana, add to the nose. What else do you smell?
I think you can definitely tell, like, the oxidation element for sure.
Complexity.
Going back to the complexity, going back to, like, it's not overly oaky to Kyle's point, but it has still that roundness, that nutmeg characteristic just based off of the nose. But it's a really pretty color too. And the bubbles are fine. They're not like
big or coarse
or anything too. So, when you're actually having it on the palate, for me, I kind of skipped ahead to the palate as well. There's a really nice seamlessness all the way across.
So let's taste it. Would you say this wine is dry, medium, medium sweet, or sweet?
For me, this is dry and refreshing.
Okay, so it's dry. For body, would you say this is full, medium, light?
I would say it's medium minus.
You agree with that? So medium light, let's say?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about intensity and concentration. How's the intensity and concentration of this wine? High, medium, low, or somewhere in between?
For me, it's personally medium. I'm not getting oversaturation of any type of heaviness or anything like that, but it still has a very pronounced character to it.
How about you? How's the intensity for this one?
It's actually interesting because I find there to be a pretty significant, like, medium plus intensity on the nose. And then on something I think about a lot is the after. It's actually like it bottoms out. It doesn't, and not in a bad way. It's refreshing and you want to bring back, but it lows
Gulpable,
out.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's talk about, but still it's long to me, the
but
finish.
it's light and long.
Yeah, light and long. It's not heavy in the finish, but it doesn't drop off.
Sorry.
It's just not heavy. The persistence is long. Okay, and then let's see. We said it's seamless. Ariana, you didn't mention, is this more fruit, oak,
So
winemaking?
I definitely think it's more mineral driven for sure,
Okay.
because there's like almost like a limestone like quality. But if we had to talk about secondaries as well, it would definitely be a little bit more of like a Meyer lemon pith. It's not like any type of ripe tropical, ripe luscious type of thing. It'd be more in that leaner citrus category or like a tart apple category. Nothing overly jammy.
And just to be clear to all of you, I'm not trying to make this part of the podcast technical, but by them breaking down the wine, then hopefully you'll learn how to break the wine. If you don't want to, then just skip that part and just listen to just their comments overall about the wine. I'm just trying to help people to calibrate their palate so they can better communicate or understand why or why not whether they like the wine or not, okay? So what are your comments about this wine? Would you buy this wine?
I would definitely buy this wine. I actually think the wine is pretty, I mean, even with the like light, long finish, it's pretty austere. It's got like it's a wine. Like this is something I would get at.
Yeah.
For sure.
I think it's because of the lemony acidity. I also think it's a perfect starter, especially for a hot day. It's thirst
Palate
quenching,
cleanser,
first of all, but it's also starter. So when I suck on a lemon, my saliva starts working and makes me want to eat. So that's why I'm saying this stimulates your appetite, whereas perhaps a drink might deaden your senses. This one is more of an uplifting aperitif style of wine. Okay, how much would you pay for this wine, Ariane? Well, let's start with Kyle. Kyle, how much would you pay for this wine in a store?
I'd pay, let's say low 30s.
Okay, how about for you?
For me, maybe like 45.
Yeah, I think the quality is really high. I bought this wine for $26 something a bottle.
Wow.
I bought it at Artfield Wine Company in Kailua.
That's a steal.
Yep, and we had this wine with Cheryl just not too long ago. I visited this domain. Kelly, you want to grab the bottle of the sparkler? And then this comes from Beaujolais, from the Côte de Bruy, the lower slopes, so it's granite soils. And there is some sand here, though, on some of their parcels. So you're right. It has that minerality, that ocean sediment minerality. And then this wine is made from Gamay Noir.
You're tripping me out.
So you were talking about Beaujolais?
Yeah.
So Gamay Noir is the grape variety that's used to make Beaujolais. It's a mutation of Pinot Noir. So Pinot Noir is one of its parents. And so this is made method champenois like they make in Champagne. This is called Effervescence. It's I think it's 24 months on the lees. Effervescence made by Nicole Chanmillon, which is a top Beaujolais producer, top Côte de Bruy producer. So just to let you guys know, Bruy is like, if you look at Beaujolais, it's just rolling hills. It's before the northern Rhone with the steep hills. It's just rolling hills like this. Then all of a sudden in the commune of Bruy, you have this mastiff that just rises like this. It's like when you drive out in Hawaii Kai, all of a sudden you see that Cocoa Head. Isn't that Cocoa Head out there?
Cocoa Crater.
Cocoa Head Crater. You know how it just stands out? So that's what the Côte de Brie is like. It just 2,000 something feet. So way higher than Cocoa Head. But it just stark flat.
Yeah.
So the Côte de Brie, where Brie, the lower part is all this pink granite. You know, the Côte de Brie, because it came from somewhere inside, deep and erupted, it's black granite. So it's a very different soil type and therefore a very different red wine than what you would find from the Brie. Yeah, so the two top producers for me is Chateau Thivan and Nicole Chamrion. She's a revolutionary, kind of a renegade female vigneron in a male-dominated society. And she just made this because she loves sparkling wine.
She did
26 something a bottle, Kyle.
I want to point out, sorry, not to
Good
cut
luck
you
getting
off,
it, guys.
but like honestly, when you're thinking about alternatives for champagne and mentioning value, to find something handcrafted that's sparkling in method champenois, so that's the traditional method for sparkling
Slowly
wine.
by hand, turning the
Slowly
bottles.
by hand, very deliberate, which is what we were talking about.
Intentional.
To find something less than $30 is
It's crazy.
that's so
And in
crazy.
Hawaii for 26 something dollars a bottle.
Yeah, that's unreal.
Wow.
Sorry, not to cut you off. What do you think about the wine?
No, I think it's fantastic. I'm floored because this is a wine that, it's going to save me a lot of money.
Yeah.
So what would both of you imagine eating with this type of wine for yourselves?
Ooh, I love it.
So first of all, on a very hot day, this thing would be in a cooler, super cold. Just poured just so I can quench the thirst and kind of like get uplifted. That's the first thing I would think. That's what when I tasted this wine. That's if you notice, I put it in the bottom of the cooler
I see.
as opposed to the top like I normally do.
Backyard barbecue tips for everyone. Love that.
And then for foods, I don't know, just anything starter. It's just something to just wash down the food.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Something with a little salt on it.
Don't be shellfish. Kyle, don't
I'm
be
getting
shellfish.
clammy. Come on.
How about this guy now? Huh? He started in on me.
Yeah, no.
Okay, were you in the Marines? Okay, so let's go on to wine number 2. Kyle, this time you start. What do you smell inside wine number 2? First of all, any more comments? I didn't mean to cut you guys off.
No.
Wine number 1?
Brilliant wine for the price.
So wine number 2, do you smell more fruit, more oak winemaking, or do you smell more mineral?
I find it to be mineral driven again.
Yeah. So it's not showy. Would you guys agree with that?
No, not showy.
It's very reticent. You have to keep smelling it to get. It's very nuanced. It's not powerful. Okay.
I also want to comment because Kyle did a brilliant job of tasting with his eyes first too. There's a very luxurious color.
Yeah.
It's very golden, and it almost makes me feel like, oh, okay, it's going to be really opulent on the nose, but it's not. It's still very reserved and demure. So I'm excited to actually see what it's going to be like on the palate.
Okay. So it's very minerally. I don't get any oak whatsoever with this wine. Let's taste it. Is this wine drier or less dry than the last wine?
Less dry.
How about for you, Ariana?
I want to say it's also less dry, but it has such a distinct funk in the best way possible. For me, like that funky mushroom characteristic is really pretty, but it's what the first thing I'm tasting is right off the bat.
Yeah, I think this wine, because of the finish, for the average viewer, it's going to taste drier than the last wine. Although I agree with you, I think this is medium dry to dry, but it's for the average person because how stark it is, how austere it is. To me, people are going to think this is a drier wine.
Still got good acid though.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so it's dry. What about the body? Is it less? Is it full, medium, light, light?
I would say for me, it's probably medium to medium minus as well, just
Okay.
because of that
Light to
lift
medium
in
body.
the back. Yeah.
Okay. Kyle, how about the intensity and concentration of this wine? What do you think?
I think it's I would say medium at the most, but it's just shy of that.
Okay.
So medium.
I agree.
Okay, to me, this is a lot more intense than the first wine. It seems more intense,
I think
more structured, more everything.
I think, but
More mojo, more swag.
I think it has swag, but I think that it also is lending itself to a lot of food options that
Yeah.
I'm already thinking about. So it's not the
It's not-
overpowering.
It's not
in
medium.
Any way.
It's not above medium body.
Yeah,
That's not
yeah.
what I'm
No.
saying. But the intensity, this thing's got way more intensity than the last wine. Last wine's a little prettier, a little more delightful and light. And I mean, this thing is like I got some mojo, some swag without being heavy or without being overly intense to me. I like it. I like the nerve in the wine. I like
grit.
the energy in the wine, and it's got grit.
Great, yeah.
So grit, Kyle, is how I define it is like having freshly ground, freshly roasted coffee, as opposed to
3-day-old.
commercially brewed coffee. So it's just something extra. Kelly, get ready with the bottle. And so, how about the acidity of this wine?
I like the acid. It's different acid than the first wine because
Yep.
the first wine's getting all that from the actual bubbles in it. But this has it's like it makes you want to eat.
And so the other thing, Ariana, how about for you? The acidity of the wine?
I think that I agree with Kyle in that, we talked about the lift in the back, but also I'm literally salivating.
Yes.
So the best way I can describe this for the viewer, how I would, as soon as I feel that acidity, I think of wherever I imagine using a squeeze of lemon, whatever foods, that's where I'm going to look for this thing. So any type of fish, scallop, shrimp, any type of seafood where instead of using a squeeze of lemon, I'm going to immediately think of this wine. And just to let you know, that's the intention of this wine. That's in this area. That's why the wine is like this.
And for
it's intentionally.
the fellow mixologists that are listening, right? It's like why acid or a squeeze of lemon or sweet and sour is so important in mixology is because you need to have that lift to, if you have a really round cocktail, to have that appetizing aspect of it, right? So I think that's probably what both of these wines are providing.
Okay, so the big question, Ariana, would you buy this wine?
Yeah, I would buy this wine.
For how much would you pay?
Probably for me, this one is probably 30.
Okay, Kyle.
I would buy this wine. I think it's actually probably quite a bit less than that. For me, I would pay. It's tough to what I would pay because I pay too much a lot. So that's a really hard question. But I would say it's probably an $18, $17 wine.
Okay, great. So just to let you know, this wine the grape variety is called Muscadet.
Muscadet.
This comes from the Loire Valley, the western reaches closest to the Atlantic Ocean. And it's mainly sand, fossilized ocean shells. But this vineyard has a special green volcanic soil called gabbro. And so that's why it's a little darker. That's why it's got a little more verve, a little more energy, a little more mojo, a little more swag than most Muscadets. This, to me, is the finest producer of Muscadet and one of the finest producers, not only Loire Valley, but in terms of artisan wines in all of France. I think this guy's wines are crazy good. And Andre Bregion, to get fresh Muscadet here in Hawaii is a very tough thing. And Andre Bregion is totally organic, biodynamic. I mean, he lives it kind of guy. He's not just saying it to market it. This is like one of the true vignerons. So when you look up the word vigneron in a French dictionary, it says either winemaker or wine grower. But in France or in Corsica or these other places, to them, vigneron has much deeper meaning. It's kind of like the word samurai to them. It's more than sword skills. It's a code. It's an ethic. It's a belief. So people would refer to both of these winemakers as vignerons because they are, all their peers will tell you, these are two of the real deals. So I'm not trying to choose esoteric wines. I'm trying to show you guys, the viewers, some guns to try that you may not have considered before. I found this at Fujioka's for 14 something a bottle.
That's amazing. Also,
I would have imagined it to be 22.
Yeah.
It's 14 something a bottle. I bought this bottle at Fujioka's just 2 days ago.
That's awesome.
I think thank you for introducing the podcast to Muscadet. I also want to mention not all Muscadets are created equal.
Absolutely.
So for those of you who are just starting out, Muscadet is very much well known for being near the ocean. So there's that salinity characteristic. Chuck mentioned, of course, the Loire Valley, which is along the Loire River, which is very, very long, stretching from inland France all the way to the ocean. Heading closest to the ocean is the Pays Nantais, where, you have Muscadet Cervé Maine. Hence why it's so good with seafood, right? And why it's so good with things like we think about oysters. Not all Muscadets, especially when they have that lees aging, are this fine because sometimes they can come off a little bit bitter. They can come off a little bit too much. This one is finesse in a bottle.
And I think for the person who likes Chardonnay or Sauvignon Blanc, this would be a really good alternative for them. In a more leaner style, a more food-friendly style.
For sure. And it's summer. Like this is a summer wine. If they're like it's getting warmer and warmer, both of these wines will be great, but this is going to be cool.
Very, very fun.
They had a couple cases of this thing there.
I like it.
So for you, the
Not
viewer.
for long, guys.
Fujioka's over there in, what area is that?
Mo'ili?
No.
What?
Market City.
Yeah.
Market City. There you go. Kapahulu, Market City.
Kapahulu, yeah.
Yeah, and so they had a couple of cases here. So I was so shocked because I would do this at Vino by the Glass all the time, but I could never get it. Because in terms of across the world,
Yeah.
Bregion is one of the guys.
Yeah.
You know, and so for us to get this wine all the way here in Hawaii and for Fujioka's to sell it for 14 something a bottle, I think that's crazy. I think that's insane. So take advantage of their insanity. Go over there and buy it. No joking. I mean, we have to beg for every bottle when we're at Vino of this wine.
You know, to the same point of, you know, talking directly to the viewer, you know, fourth wall, here we are, guys. There's an intention with buying better wines as well.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they could buy it just because, you know, whatever it's recommended, but like the thought process and being more intentional. We saw that all through the pandemic last year, right? People are buying fresh baked bread from local bakeries.
Yeah.
You're buying real wine from
Real
Family owned.
Yeah.
like that's intention, even as a purchaser, as a consumer, which is rare. Go buy dope wine. Come on.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I mean, the thing about it is, I mean, this guy too is just, he's a farmer. When you sit there and talk to him, his hands are coarse and calloused, and his face is all weathered. It's not like the guy driving the the Maserati with the Louis Vuitton, you know. So, you know, Nicole Chanrion is just this down to earth. She's ferocious, just like you. You know, she knows what the hell she wants to do and everything. She's not uppity. She's not aggressive. She's just very strong. You could feel how strong her mind, her will is. And I think that the way that she approaches her grape growing and winemaking is very much shown. Her passion is clearly displayed in her wines. You know, same thing with Michel. So Michel Bregion, everything is underground glass line cuves. That's how he ages his wines, and he ages it with the lees for complexity. So rather than using oak or anything that's not anything to do with the vineyard, it's the lees, it's the dead yeasts and the proteins that come from the grape. He just leaves it down there.
I love it.
And then one of his wines is called Gorgas. That's his reserve wine. So Gorgas is made only once in a while. Now, because of global warming, it's made very frequently compared to before. But the first Gorgas I had was 10 years on the lees. And it wasn't overly leesy.
Rested on the lees.
Yeah, 10 years.
Talk about purposeful.
Yeah.
Like,
and so it's very
very
complex, it's very textured, it's very creamy and everything without being overdone. And the salinity was still there. The purity, the minerality was still there. So he has a special rock called gabbro. It's a green, bluish green volcanic rock that most other producers in the area or the Loire Valley in general don't have gabbro. He's got it. And so that's why his wines have more fortitude, more mojo. You know, it's not beefed up things. It's not things that are, you know, too low yields and just trying to make something like a liquid rock. His wines just are soulfully minerally and sense of place.
I love both of these. Thank you for sharing. I mean,
No
I
worries,
know you always
seriously.
produce value, but
Well,
how
that's a
can you
big
go
thing.
You can't go wrong with this for under $25.
So Dave was mentioning that you like minerally wines and that you like sparkling wines. So I was trying to find something that might perk your interest, but still provided value. That was a key factor. That's a hard thing to do.
It is.
Is to find value. But the average viewer ain't going to go to the store and buy Effervescence. No. They ain't going to go buy Bregion Muscadet.
Yeah.
You know, so hopefully we can shed some light and give these people a voice, a presence.
Been in this industry for 20 years, drinking all kind of great things. I wouldn't have found it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's an interesting, different experience too,
So
right?
great. Yeah.
Perfect timing.
Okay, so other comments or questions you want to ask?
No, this is
Kyle?
delicious. All good. Oh, I honestly think I just want to hear a little bit more about, you can visit Kōhana right now for tours, correct?
Yeah.
But restaurants can also book tours as well,
Oh,
right?
for sure. Yeah. So we obviously, we know where our bread is buttered. We've invested very heavily in
Your bread?
our bread.
Stop loafing around.
Buttered. We're on a roll.
How you like that?
So we're always supporting our local, bars, restaurants, whatever it may be. Oftentimes with like staff outings, they want to come and learn. And there's so few places in the world, but especially in Hawaii, where can you go and go to the farm, go to the distillery, go to the barrel house, go to the bottling line,
Yeah.
go to the tasting room, and then like have to deal with me at some point along there. Like all of those are great except for one, right? So it's like, why wouldn't you experience it? And we're so fortunate to get to share it. And it's like, we get about 50% locals all the time, even pre-pandemic. So like, it's a fun thing to be able to jam.
Absolutely.
I say it's an adult field trip.
I love that. I think, if you're a restaurant and you haven't thought about maybe featuring Kōhana yet, maybe consider that as like, it's going to be a full experience, not just for your customers, but also for your staff to actually get to support a local product. So that'd be amazing.
And the other thing, it's easily recognizable on the store shelf, probably more frequently at the fine wine retailers.
Yep.
But their bottle is, as you saw on the blurb when he was making the drink, it's a very unique style that you can immediately spot on the store shelf, so easy to find. I'm sure Fujioka's, Arfield, all these premium wine stores carry it, and they carry it for the right reasons. And so there you have it.
Absolutely.
Kyle, mahalo for coming, sharing your wisdom, your experiences, your insights.
Thanks
for having me.
Thank you.
Your jokes weren't so good, but other than that, all the other things were good.
Not a
Ariana,
lot to live up to.
thank you again, the Gram Sam, making her presence, making her grand entrance. And to all of you, thank you for tuning in, and hopefully you learned a thing or two. And we hope you tune in next week. Until then, aloha, everybody.
Aloha.